listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host Keith Angle on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Angle, TGI Sports Talk with our Sunday stream of consciousness. No lack of stuff to talk about today. We got the NFL with the Championship Sunday. We'll look at last week's games and some of the fallout from those games. Coaching decisions around the league. Quarterback decisions to be made around the league. We'll have Jim Biringer in around 9 o'clock to catch us up on the NHL, power rankings, and some other things going on there. Can't read my own writing. Bruins on a record run over there, I guess, is one of the things we'll be talking about. We'll get into the Major League Baseball as well. I want to talk with you guys, and I know Drew and I have some differences of opinions on the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to Scott Rolen for getting in. And we'll look at that. Some other guys that are on the verge, Jeff Kent, all done. And me rethinking Billy Wagner. We'll talk about that. And some guys coming up in the next couple of classes. And just one quick note, and we'll talk about it again maybe a little bit later when if I have some time. I want to talk about some of the big upsets. Big upset in college basketball yesterday, Oklahoma beating number 2 Alabama. Not just beating them, but thrashing them, really. But the great Billy Packer passed away over the weekend at 82 years old. Billy Packer, longtime college basketball analyst, and he'll be missed. I mean, he's been missed to me since he's been off the air. And I can't believe I read an article yesterday that he's been off, I believe, since 2008. It's shocking to me that it's been 14 years since I'd seen Billy Packer do a basketball game. He was actually a really decent college basketball player. Started announcing after doing a little bit of coaching. I think he was an assistant at Wake Forest, his alma mater. When in 72 he started broadcasting, he became part of what was really, I think, the best broadcast team, especially for college basketball or basketball in general. Dick Enberg, Al McGuire, the great Al McGuire, and Billy Packer were part of that NBC team when college basketball was really ascending, and the NCAA tournament was really taking off during the Bird and Magic years, for instance. So our condolences to the Packer family, and Billy, rest in peace. Job well done. Godspeed to you, buddy. So we'll talk a little bit about that more if we can if we get some college basketball. Good morning, CA. Good to have you in with us today. Good morning to Alan. Congratulations to your Sooners on that big upset yesterday. Good day for the Big 12 against the SEC in general. Yeah, we'll take a look at some of those scores if we get a chance later. We got a lot to talk about in football and baseball, but we'll get there. And again, if we don't, we'll certainly talk about it Wednesday night on the College Sports Huddle. And again, welcome to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We're on our TGI Sports Talk page, Northeast Streaming Sports, simulcasting on Let's Talk Sports. And we continue to talk sports where we go. Good morning, Drew. Long time no see. We did have lunch yesterday at, gosh, I can't remember. What the heck is the name of that place, Drew? We took our mother-in-law and our wives and father-in-law and my grandbaby and her parents all out to lunch yesterday at, unbelievable, I can't remember the name. Good morning, Drew. Good morning, Anthony. Good to have you with us. Baltimore Raven fan. Wrong. Washington Redskins. See, thought I'd forget. Team formerly known as the Redskins. It just cost myself $20. Anthony, good morning, sir. I wonder if they will change the NCAA from 2 quarters to 4, 2 halves, right? It's not 2 quarters, it's 2 halves. I don't know. It's an interesting question. They've gone this long. I doubt that they will. It's 2 20-minute halves for those of you. Plum Blossom, thank you. So we'll see, Anthony. We'll talk more about that in the coming. I have not heard any discussion of that. So Let's see, where are we going to start today? Because I've got Jim Biringer at 9 o'clock, 9 to 9:30 or so. So we'll talk some football. We'll switch over to hockey and come back to some football and certainly some baseball, because I do want to talk about the Hall of Fame voting and some other news in baseball. Let's see what's going on. But last week, let's just set up the weekend, I guess. It's Championship Sunday, right? Let's see if we can find the right. I got so many banners now, man. Jeez, good grief. Championship Sunday's upon us. 49ers at the Eagles, 3 p.m. Unfortunately on Fox. Sorry, Kenny. I know you can't watch it. Those of you with DirecTV will have to find other means to watch this game, because Mission Broadcasting's dispute with at least locally here. I guess it's Fox Broadcasting in general with DirecTV all over the country. You'll have trouble watching this game. You'll have to go out and watch it. I fortunately have a digital antenna where I get like 60 channels, so I can switch over to that to watch the Fox games. That'll be an interesting battle. The Eagles showed how powerful they really are. If you remember, they played great football till Jalen Hurts got hurt. And then Jalen Hurts showed, again, it wasn't Jalen Hurts, though. I think he makes a difference, but don't forget, they ran for 268 yards in this game last week. So that'll be the early game, and then later we've got the Bengals visiting Burrowhead Stadium. I love that comment. Joe Burrow's the best, man. Burrowhead Stadium. By the way, the line's been all over this game. I love the 49ers today. I love the Bengals. And I was getting a little nervous because during the week, the line went from Kansas City being favored to the Bengals being as much as 2-point favorites. And now it's back to Kansas City being 1.5. So, probably based off of the news about Mahomes' ankle injury. We'll get into those games. But let's also talk a little bit about last week's games. Let me get to your comments here real quick before I jump in. Plum Blossom. I don't know why I never remember the name of that. I love Chinese food, Drew, and but it's almost like McDonald's for me. It's such a great idea when I'm eating it, and later on I go, oh, why did I do that? Anyway, the food was excellent. Speaking of Baltimore, the Ravens have requested permission to interview Eric Bieniemy for the offensive coordinator job. Moving laterally in the NFL is a little bit different than moving up, so the Chiefs do not have to request that or grant that permission, and they don't have to let him out of the contract he may or may not have. I don't know what his contract situation is, but they don't have to let him out of his contract to go. Eric Bieniemy is a very interesting case, and we'll talk about head coaches today too, but he's a very interesting case study. There's got to be something that some reason Eric Bieniemy has not got a job. He's gotten interviews for almost every opening there's been. And he has he's got some history way back in his past. And if that's what's keeping him from getting this job, then I don't know. Again, I don't know how serious the situation was, and I hope. And if it was a very serious situation, I got to look into it a little more. But Eric Bieniemy has not really been, that close. I mean, he's interviewed, but he hasn't really been that close to a job. And when it is, it's the Texans. Going to be rough with the Super Bowl being on Fox this year. Well, I'll be on a cruise ship, so I won't really care. Sorry for you guys, but I will see the game on a big screen. Giant screen. It will be tough. And Fox, listen, Fox can't be happy either with this situation. But this isn't really, it's funny, because this isn't necessarily a Fox issue. I keep saying this to people. You got to understand the issues here. This is a dispute between Mission Broadcasting, which handles all the Fox networks. It's very interesting. It's only Fox that's off. FS1 is on, Fox Business is on, Fox News is on. It's only Fox. So it's kind of interesting, and it will be, maybe it'll get resolved before the Super Bowl. They got 2 weeks, but this is the longest dispute I can remember between a major network. Well, not between, again, the network's not really involved. It's their distributing company. It's about money. But this is the longest I've seen one of these things go on. They usually go on a month, a couple of weeks. Had one with ABC not long, a few years back. Need Joe Bean the Bengals for players in the NFL Challenge. Well, so do I. I've got all Bengals and all 49ers. So let's go Bengals. Let's go 49ers. I kind of believe, and Drew can back me up, if the 49ers and Bengals win, I'm not sure I can lose. I can't dissect it that close, right? But I'm very happy to where I stand. Because I predicted those teams. Obviously, I would. That's why I picked the way I picked. I did pick these two teams before the playoffs started, not before the season. I predicted the Chiefs. I'm sorry. I picked it. What did I pick? I know I picked the Rams. Maybe I picked a rematch. I can't remember. I know I picked the Rams. How does Alan feel about the Rangers signing these great? Oh, God, we can talk a little about this right now if you like. I mean, I was going to talk some baseball or football until we got the 9 o'clock hour, but we can jump into that. Go ahead, Alan. You can answer this question. He's great in quotations. Make sure you read the quotations. NRI players, Danny Duffy, Clint Frazier, Travis Janikowski, Ian Kennedy, Reyes Montoya. Alan, this is the exact reason I tell you should not be signing DeGrom to crazy money because you're not ready to win. I did pick the Bills, Rams. You're right. Thank you. That didn't work out too good, did it? So, Alan, you can respond there if you like. If not, I'm going to continue on with a little bit of football talk. I want to talk. Maybe we can get last week's games out of the way a little bit. The games last week, Jacksonville, Kansas City. Jacksonville shows they've got to learn how to win yet. I think they played they played a decent football game. They hurt themselves with mistakes. Agnew's fumble was a killer. It takes teams time. You need to lose these games usually to become winners later on. And I think Jacksonville certainly, their trajectory is very good. I think it's very possible with some more additions at wide receiver and whatnot, they'll be one of the strongest teams in the AFC next year. Very possible. And Kansas City showed why, as I said early in the year, or before the year, quite frankly, when Tyreek Hill got traded, that Tyreek Hill isn't what made, everybody thought the Chiefs were going to take this big step back. And I don't like the Chiefs today, and not just because Mahomes is hurt. I didn't think they'd take a step back. I said their demise was greatly exaggerated, to paraphrase Mark Twain, because it's Travis Kelce that makes that offense go. And you saw that. And Chad Henne steps in with a big drive. Championship caliber teams, that's what they do. They put Jacksonville to the test. Let's see. I'll get to your questions here. John Gonzalez. These two games are a toss-up. I got the Eagles and the Bengals in two close games, perhaps overtime. I like both games close too, John. And welcome, John Gonzalez from the Sports Authorities, by the way, guys. I've mentioned this before. John runs one of the best groups out there. We've spotlighted him several times on the college football huddle and some other places. I try to make those little announcements at the top. Get out there and like the Sports Authorities. If you like sports, John posts some great stuff, contemporary stuff, and really good nostalgic stuff as well. John's a great admin of that Sports Authorities group. So please go there and join and like it and share it with your friends, as well as Northeast Streaming Sports, and as well as TGI Sports Talk, and as well as Let's Talk Sports. Kneecap biting with Jeremy B. Smoking Jeremy B. Good morning. Always good to see a new face with us. I'm going to guess you're a Lions fan. Jeremy, awesome to have you with us. Good step forward for your Lions this year, I think. You also picked the name Redacted to win the East. I know that. You keep throwing that in my face. As well, you should, by the way. That was a team formerly known as the Redskins, for those of you tuning in late. What else in the other games last week that are of note? The Bills, listen, already the people are talking about the Bills' windows of opportunities closing. I don't know. Listen, Josh Allen's still one of the top 3 quarterbacks in football. Didn't play well Sunday. Had some issues down the stretch. Kind of turned the ball over and regressed a little bit. Maybe that's got something to do with his offensive coordinator, his quarterback coach being in New York. Or New Jersey, sorry. But the Bengals were a better team. They punched. I said this on some shows Friday. The Bengals punched the Bills in the face, and the Bills never punched back. They ran a ball down their throat. Joe Burrow with no offensive line, but he's used to that. Said that before the game last week, right? I told you guys I was betting them +6, by the way. I thought I was going to get him at like 4.5. I got him at +6. It's a no-brainer. And they manhandled the Bills. The game wasn't as close as what the final score was. What do we got here? Oh, there. How do I put that up again? You're welcome, John. Appreciate your kind words as well, and the fact that you let me share not just the shows, but the promos so that we can get new people in these shows. So it's great to have you as one in our corner, John, and keep up the great work there. I think Cat Biting was smoking Joe Jeremy. I can't read the whole name every time, buddy. Funny but true. One team, any team that beats the Bills in the last 3 seasons, they have lost the next round. Interesting. Is that actually true? Oh, Kansas City beat them last year, right? Kansas City beat them the year before? Nope, that was the Browns. So who was it? Was it Kansas? Who beat them that third year? Who beat them that third year? So I've got, and I think I'm right, Kansas City last year, Browns the year before. Interesting. Bengals dominated the Bills on both sides of the line. I agree. That's why I say they punched them out, and the Bills had no answer. You know, the whole DeMar Hamlin thing, and it was great. I mean, it's a great story. It's great that he's back, and this thing didn't turn into a worse tragedy than what it was. But I really think there's an effect where they had a big boost and a big high, like take an energy drink is how I described it the other day. You get this big high, but then, you know, when that emotion in this case, and energy is a little different, but that big high, when you deflate a lot. And I just think they couldn't sustain that. And I think the Bengals were angry about the whole way the NFL handled that whole situation. So, again, I think the Bills, I don't think they're ready to, pack it in. I think they're still the team to beat in the AFC East. We'll talk more about this. Lots of moves that happen in the offseason, as we've already seen. We'll see. But you're right. Physical football, Bengals were better. And I think you might see that today. Better physical football. If I was a player, I'd love to play for the Lions coach. Played for a couple of similar coaches in high school and on the Colonials. Did they bite them in the kneecap speeches over Rick? Jeremy, and yes, I'm a Lions fan. And an editorialist. Interesting. Anybody you want to? Are you a what's a freelance, or do you work somewhere where we can give you a little plug? We'll be happy to do that. You get one free plug here. Smoking Jeremy. All right, we'll get you to Smoking Jeremy. KC twice. Oh, I think it was the Titans. I think you're right. I think it was the Titans now that I think about it. Because I think they won in a first round and then lost to Kansas City. Losing Von Miller hurt the Bills for sure. We did see that last weekend. And, a lot of people wondered about how much effect he would have. And I think he had a lot of effect, obviously, on that defense. He played more than people thought he might play. And obviously, when he was out, look at just taking, and I know there are people who watch this show who will go on nameless, Mad New Yorker. Sorry. That think leadership doesn't matter. Leadership always matters. When you lose a leader like Von Miller on the field, it affects everything that you do. Texans, Colts, Chiefs. Colts? Sure wasn't. Oh, no, you're right. No, I could have swore it was the Browns one year. Well, I'll take your word for it. It's hard for me to believe by the way the Texans were in the playoffs as recently as 2019. I guess the unnamed criminal, as he will be named on this show, pervert, we can call him whatever you want, was still playing it at a high level then. They weren't too happy having to play the Ravens again and felt disrespected. Oh, I agree. Listen, I think all season the Bengals felt like people thought last year was a fluke, them getting to the Super Bowl. I think Joe Burrow was undervalued as one of the best quarterbacks. He's in that top 3. You can rank him any way you want. And Joe Burrow might be the best. He'll be the best quarterback on the field this weekend, I can tell you that, especially with Mahomes' injury. But you're right, disrespected, then angry, because they did the right thing, all the right things. They did all the right things. And so did the Bills after the DeMar Hamlin situation. And as I've said, no good deed ever goes unpunished. So this is a perfect example of it. And I think the Bengals are carrying that anger over, and that's why I like them again today. I am happy I'm getting points, even though it's a 1.5, because as John Gonzalez pointed out, I do think these will be very close games. Both games could go to overtime. Both games could be a field goal game. Got to decide. I can make 4 wagers today at what I normally wager in the cigar box. So I'm debating the over-unders. I really don't like betting a team and the over-under because it makes it hard, especially when we're talking about the over. I don't like rooting for both teams when I got money on one. The loss to the Texans. Everybody forgets the Texans because the franchise is like nowhere now. They could not play next year. Would anybody even notice? Poor bastards. Wild card round. Like it when our new guys come in, Smoking Jeremy, and contribute right away. Great job. Colts in 2020 had a Phillips Rivers at quarterback, and I believe they were a wild card team. They were a wild card team. Gosh, they might have won a division, though. That division was pretty bad. Might have won a division. There's Waldo. Good morning, Billy. Go Jets. I think the Jets are significant underdogs today, Bill. So I would put a lot of money on them if I were you. In fact, I'll take your money. The only wager I'll accept is the Jets will not win today. That'll be my side of the bet. Since he's been talking a lot of trash, you can say that because listen, Joe Cool, man, I like him, but he backs it up. He doesn't. A lot of times, guys like that irritate the crap out of me. But Joe Burrow, for some reason, I like a lot, and I think he's a better quarterback in this game. And the Bengals, by the way, let's not forget. You know why the Bengals are talking trash, Jeremy? Because they've been disrespected, as CA, I think, said, all year. And again, maybe some of it's manufactured because the selling of the championship game tickets in Atlanta, they had to start selling tickets, right? Because you got to get people in those seats. So anyway, look at Tom Brady made a living of manufacturing slights to motivate himself. And if the Bengals are doing that now, then God bless them. But you're probably right. I mean, there could be a revenge factor for Kansas City. I just think Cincinnati's the better team right now. Eagles have the best offensive line, and they also have one of the best defenses. 70 sacks, by the way. So he talks about that offensive line neutralizing Bosa and the Niners defensive front. Look at this. These are in the trenches. At front seven, these teams are both fabulous. Fabulous. I think this game comes down to, and I wasn't going to talk too much about this yet, but I will, because this is a stream of consciousness show, and you guys kind of dictate where we go. We will at 9 o'clock-ish go to Jim Biringer and talk some NHL for about 20, 30 minutes. So don't leave, because even if you're not an NHL guy, afterwards we're going to go back to the NFL and some MLB. 70 sacks from this Philadelphia defense. Really, really good. You saw it last week against the Giants. And I'll throw this in there right now. We probably won't be able to get into it too deeply until after the Jim Biringer spot. But the Giants should not be ashamed of the season that they have. And a lot of people are throwing their arms up and like, oh, my God, see what I told you? I told you Daniel Jones was no good. Daniel Jones had no chance last week. None. The Eagles are so much better, and Daniel Jones has no weapons. You can't come back even 2 touchdowns down with that team. Where's he going with the football? Jeremy writes, smoking Jeremy, writes for the South Florida Tribune. All right, cool. And you're a Lions fan in Florida. You got to be a transplant, obviously. I say obviously. Line moving on footage of Patrick 1 to 1.5. Listen, earlier in the week, the Bengals were favored by 1.5. The line opened with Kansas City favored, moved to the Bengals, and then moved back here Thursday, Friday to the Chiefs. So, listen, I hope it moves to 2.5. I hope it moves to 3.5. It's not going to. Titans won the division that year and lost to Lamar Jackson. Oh, that's right. The Titans still, that's right. I keep forgetting the Titans are in the same division as the Colts. Mighty Kneecaps would have been a very watered-down version. Oh, my God. I know the coaches of which you speak. Oh, so you're kind of an independent contractor with the paper? That's good. Eagles look ready. Bengals have injured quarterback opponent. Listen, Patrick Mahomes will play good football today. What's going to hurt him is he will not be able to improvise the way that he normally does, which really hurts the Kansas City offense because his escapability, I mean, he's not the best running quarterback by far in the NFL, but his escapability is as good as anybody's. It's as good as, you know, Allen's and Hurts, who run for 700 yards in a season. Mahomes doesn't run for that kind of yardage, but he escapes, keeps plays alive. That's where the difference will be. And the Bengals defense is underrated. And forget about the injured quarterback. They beat this team at Arrowhead with a healthy Patrick Mahomes last year and a worse, as bad an offensive line as they have right now. Normal guy. We don't have many of those around here. Good to see you. Another new face today. Good to have you with us. Bengals in a close game. 40. That's not a close game. That's 2 touchdowns. Do you have a misprint there, normal guy? 42-28? Unless you're talking about it gets away late. That's a lot of points. I don't know. Yeah. It's going to be hard if I bet the Bengals. Of course, there's not a lot of points, so I really don't need to worry too much. All I got to do is get a victory. Eagles, look, we already talked about that. Smoking Jeremy. Brian Daboll should be the coach of the year. I think he will get the coach of the year. He did much with less than him or Peterson, in my opinion. You know what? Listen, this is one of the years with more candidates than I can ever remember. And I do see Jim Biringer in the waiting room. We'll get him in here to talk some NHL in a little bit. And we'll even let him make a prediction on the 2 NFL games today, probably. But I'll get through your comments here real quick. So we're gonna pivot in a minute. And then when Jim is we let Jim go because he's got to referee a game today. We'll pivot back to football and then some baseball. So I agree with Brian Daboll. A lot of candidates, so that's what I started to say. Tons of candidates this year, more than I can remember. Many deserving candidates. How do you protect a quarterback with a lower leg injury, run the ball, and utilize 7-8 man protections? They're going to have their hands full today for sure. The Bengals defense is underrated. Yeah, we'll get into this a little bit later, John. Jets hired Nathaniel Hackett. It does not signify Aaron Jones is coming to the Jets. No. I got 50 million reasons why. Chad H saved. He did. Listen, that drive, 98 yards, kept the momentum from changing and shifting to Jacksonville when it could have. Great job. Neil Bush, good to see you today. Low scoring game in Kansas City. Heard it will be cold. Bengals win. Better running game. Agreed. But man, that kid and his name's escaping me right now, and I'll have to look. He played really well last week. Kid from Rutgers. Can't think of his name. Over under in Chiefs is 48.5. Both defenses are good. I remember when 48.5 was a big point spread. Way to go, John. Talk Jets. Who talked Jets? John Gonzalez? Oh, yeah. We'll get into that some after. Henny Given Sunday. That's a good one, Jeremy. Awesome. Listen, guys, we're going to pivot a little bit. Let me change my banner here for a second before I bring our guest in. We haven't had him in a couple weeks. Last week, he was vacationing somewhere warm, I hope. Jim Biringer from FullPressHockey.com and Let's Talk Sports. Welcome, Jim.
What's going on? How are we doing today?
Oh, awesome. It's a big Sunday.
It is a big Sunday. Football Sunday, championship Sunday. I love it.
Hockey, we got to catch up on the hockey, but I'll give you a couple minutes here to give me your picks in this game. As I've said already, I like the Bengals and the 49ers today. I like both the road teams and both the dogs.
I mean, I can't go wrong with those picks. I'm hoping for Cincinnati 49ers Super Bowl. I just think Joe Burrow's just Joe Cool on the road. He knows how to beat that team in Arrowhead. Knows how to beat Patrick Mahomes. That offense is clicking. And the way they designed their schemes last week against Buffalo, you're going to see the same schemes this week too, how they get the ball out of his hands so quickly. And I like San Francisco, man. Brock Purdy, getting it done. That two best defenses, that one's going to be a hard-hitting, low-scoring affair.
John Gonzalez says, good morning, Jimmy.
What's up?
John's one of our favorites. Good morning from Rick Sherlock and the Ringmaster, Bill Pulver. I don't know if Bill Pulver's been for one of your segments in a while.
I don't know.
We have to get Winnipeg in here somewhere. Jesus, good grief.
Yeah, they're playing well. I mean, the Jets are playing well. Had a bad loss on Saturday night to the Flyers, but Winnipeg's hanging strong in that Central Division. I
think he just roots for any team that has Jets as their nickname. So that's all it is. Let's start. I mean, in your power rankings, and I would think everybody's power rankings all over the country, it's got to be the Boston Bruins. We're on a pace to set a record. No?
No, they're number one. They're number one. Everybody has number one Boston Bruins. Everybody does.
Didn't I say number one?
You did, but you thought I was finger saying no. I meant I was putting the finger.
Okay, I got you. I saw a waggle there, and I thought, if I get that from my wife, I know I did something wrong. So.
Yeah.
Is this team as good as it looks? Are they going to set records this year?
I mean, they're setting records right now. Fastest team to 80 points. Their home record is ridiculous. Road record is just as good. I mean, when you have two losses at home, look, the beginning of the year we talked about it, right? It was like survive, weather the storm, get through the injuries, and I'd see where it's at. Just be good enough to stay close and then explode. They just decide, no, we're just going to go out and beat everybody. I mean, they suffered the first time this year. They suffered Saturday night, back-to-back losses for the first time all year. Very rare for the Bruins.
Mm-hmm.
But they're playing well. 4 lines. They have depth scoring. They have depth defensemen. Goaltending's been excellent. Linus Ullmark, his best goals against average, best record for a goalie this year, is probably going to win the Vezina. Jeremy Swayman's playing great too, so they're going to probably win the Jennings Trophy. And Boston, look, I said it to a bunch of people. It's a major disappointment if the Boston Bruins don't win the Stanley Cup this year. Major disappointment the way they're playing hockey. Look, we all know regular season you could put up these great numbers, great statistics. It doesn't matter. Once the playoffs come, you could get knocked out in the first round. I don't see that happening. But what I will say is Boston's kryptonite is the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, they can't play against this team or beat this team, especially in the playoffs. And that's the only matchup. If Tampa gets by Toronto, which, Toronto's history in the first round,
Yeah, we know that.
We already know that. So, I mean, Boston's got to figure out a way to get there. But I like what they're doing. Krejci, Bergeron, Pasternak, Zaka. I mean, up and down this lineup, this team is playing well. They're weathering the storm right now with Jake DeBrusk, his injury, but he'll be back in the lineup soon. The biggest question for them is what do they do at the trade deadline? Do they stay status quo? Do they add some depth? I mean, or do you really want to change what's going on in this locker room right now because they're playing really well?
What do we hear? I mean, what are the rumbling? The trade deadline is when?
March 3rd.
March. So we still got a little ways yet. I mean, are there major are there things that you'd be surprised at if they didn't happen at the trade deadline?
Yeah, I would be. I mean, go check out NHLrumors.com. I wrote an article about the Vancouver Canucks.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be active this deadline. If they're not, it's a complete failure of this organization. Last year, JT Miller was supposed to be traded. He wasn't. He signs the extension. All the turmoil that goes on in and in Vancouver right now, Bo Horvat is available. They're going to go back to the table. They're going to talk, but he doesn't want to sign an extension there. You got to trade him. You have Luke Shen. You have Brock Vesser. You have all these pieces that you want to move out. If you really, they really don't have a plan, so they have to come up with a plan. But they're not good enough to make the playoffs. You need to get draft picks and stop signing guys to contracts that don't make sense. I mean, the Andre Kuzmenko one, 2 years at 5.5 is fine, but the JT Miller contract in the summer didn't make any sense because his trade value was so high. Teams were calling and giving you what they wanted, and you decided, oh, well, he's going to be a part of the future, and Bo Horvat's not.
Well, I mean, we talked about the Lightning a little bit. I mean, Lightning just is like the team that will not go away.
No, they won't. I mean, they won't.
What other? We know Toronto's history. What other? If Boston's going to get beat in the East, who outside of the Lightning is there anybody that you can see that can put a stop to this team's steamroller?
No, I don't. Boston's that good. I don't see it happening. I mean, I think Tampa and Boston's going to beat themselves. What did we talk about last year with Tampa? The only team that's going to beat Tampa is Tampa themselves, and they faced a good Colorado team. Look, Boston's really good top to bottom. I really don't see, anyone beating them outside of maybe the Lightning, just because of the matchup. But other than that, I don't really see anybody beating this team because they're really good.
So if we look out west, is there a team that will even give them a challenge in the Stanley Cup?
I mean, it's so hard because the Western Conference right now, I think everything's so top heavy in the East because you have Boston, Carolina, Jersey, the Rangers are up there. You have the Lightning, Toronto, all those teams, right? Vegas has come back to earth a lot. Their goaltending hasn't been the greatest. Their offense is just not there. Jack Eichel's cooled off. No Mark Stone, the injuries. Dallas is playing well. You have Winnipeg out there. Can they do something? I think the Eastern Conference is probably going to win a Stanley Cup this year. But again, things could change. Edmonton Edmonton's starting to put things together right now in the Pacific to make things interesting there. But it's just, it's so wide open.
So basically, we're at a point where the only thing beating the Bruins is the Bruins.
Right. It's the Bruins against the field right now.
Let's take a look.
Because there's really nobody. I mean,
we got a bunch of comments here. Let me go through some comments before we jump forward. And I'll start here. Hi from Dan Harris at Let's Talk Sports.
right.
Dan, good to have you with us this morning. Guys, we talk a lot about Dan Harris. Send him a little quick note. I'm sure he'd be happy to hear from you. And go like and follow Let's Talk Sports on YouTube. Dan does a great job over there. And Jim is certainly one of the big contributors on a lot of the shows as well. So welcome in this morning, Jim. Good to have you. Let's see. We got some other comments from Alan's rooting for a team that can score 4 goals and still find a way to lose. The nerve-wracking looking at you, Pittsburgh. Any comments on the Penguins?
There's trouble in paradise in Pittsburgh. If Tristan Jarry can't get healthy and be the number one guy there, Casey DeSmith obviously is not the goaltender of this team. And, We talked about it for a while now. Pittsburgh needs depth at that position. Casey dismissed and Tristan Jari just isn't the answer. They need to find other pieces too, depth pieces outside of Sidney Crosby and Malkin and all those guys. And again, I know it's easy to pick on the Malkin and the Letang contracts and stuff, but the Penguins needed to make a decision and move on from one of them in the offseason. They didn't need to sign both. And again, they're going back down we want to bring the band back together. We want to keep everybody together, but you didn't need to pay those guys. You should have been able to be like, look, you guys done what you done. Let's take team-friendly contracts here, and we can keep this thing going. But they're all older. You could see, again, the biggest question was, when was Boston, Washington, Pittsburgh going to slow down? The two biggest question marks were Pittsburgh and Washington, and they're both right there, but the Sabres are charging. I mean, it could be one or both miss the playoffs this year. I would not be surprised if either one, but
Sabres are a nice, we talked about it a few weeks ago, I think a nice turnaround story along with your Devils this year in the NHL for sure.
Yeah, I mean, three of the best storylines right now going is New Jersey, Buffalo, and Seattle. What they're all doing. New Jersey, the never quit mentality, keep fighting. Jack Hughes, all-star, 33 goals, going to be the team's first 50-goal, 100-point getter in team history. What they're doing, the goaltending, Vanacek, Tom Fitzgerald continues to look good. Making these depth moves for nothing. He's going to continue to look for a top six winger, but he wants it to be a controllable asset. In Buffalo, they had the great start, and middle finish wasn't the greatest, but again, they're finding ways now to win hockey games. Yeah, they had a tough loss in Minnesota, but they're staying close now instead of getting steamrolled. And obviously Seattle, with the turnaround that they've had after a disappointing first year, they've had depth scoring. Andre Burakovsky, Matty Beniers. The goaltending has been great. Top to bottom, they're just a well-oiled machine this year, and it's good to see that.
It's one of our newer viewers, Smoking Jeremy here, because I can't read his whole name anymore. It's just too long for me. With a general comment, and he's right. Anyone thinks hockey's boring from watching it on TV, there's no better in-person sport than hockey, in my mind. You got to watch it in person to really fall in love with this sport.
Absolutely. You have to be in person and watch a game. It is definitely, a little challenging on TV at times, but if you understand what's going on after you've been there in person, it's a great sport to watch.
Yeah, I would, and we get some great local hockey up here we've had it for years with the River Rats, the Devils, for a long time, one of the Devils farm teams. Plus we have Union and RPI up here in college, they've often got very competitive teams. Union's won national championships. So is RPI for that matter. So get out, watch it. Billy wants to know if Boston is the Buffalo Bills. I don't think they are.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think that's Toronto. I think that's the Maple Leafs.
That's a better comparison, probably, right? Not just geographically, but
yeah, I know they're close by, but yeah, I mean, Toronto struggles in the first round. Bills can't seem to get out of the divisional round, so yeah.
CA wants to talk about the Stars a little bit. He's down in that area. Wants the Stars to add a few here at the playoff. The trade deadline, like Mayfield from the Islanders. Oh, he likes Mayfield from the Islanders.
Yeah, I mean, look, Dallas. Yeah, I like Dallas. I mean, Dallas is playing well. Rupe Hintz, Joe Pavelski, that top line, Gurianov, Sagan, and Ben all playing well. I definitely think they want to add a top forward for sure. Add a little bit more scoring to this team. Their goaltending's been excellent with Jake Ottinger. Their defense is, unreal too. As far as the Islanders go, I mean, look, they got. I don't know. I mean, they're right there. They're right on the outside looking in. Again, it's all going to be what Lou wants to do and how he feels this team what he feels this team needs to do. He's been taking a lot of heat lately. Their offense is, not great. Outside of the 2 wins in a row, they weren't playing really well before that. Took a lot of slack. Again, I said it. They never really addressed the issue of scoring. And when his teams went to back-to-back conference finals, that was the time to start adding or retooling a little bit. He continues to bring in his guys. They're older guys he's drafted or guys he's liked. That can't work in a salary cap era. You can't have an internal salary cap and operate and expect to win games. Your defense and goaltending can only carry you so far. You have to score goals in this league. And the Islanders are just not doing it right now. Yeah, they won back-to-back games, but the break is coming. Everybody's on their bye weeks, and it's just we're going to see what happens because, he doesn't have a contract. It's going to be interesting to see if it's renewed. But Lou has to make this team more competitive.
It feels like he's tried to recreate his success with the Devils, and the league has changed, and you can't win that way anymore.
No, you can't win that way. I saw it after 2012, after they went to the Stanley Cup final. He's like, okay, well, we got to Stanley Cup final. I really don't have to do much. Maybe add a couple pieces that can get us there again. But they got lucky in that run, and things fell their way. But with the Islanders, same thing. You have to look to add. You gotta keep the look to change. So, look, the Islanders are in a tough situation right now.
Smoking Jeremy, with a comment about the Red Wings potentially getting Bertuzzi and then trade him away. Excellent talent, but cannot stay on the ice. Any comment there?
I know he's a free agent, so they're gonna be. We'll see. Again, Detroit's probably a seller this year, even though they're only 7 points out of the final wild card spot. They got a lot of teams to jump. Not playing the greatest. I think Bertuzzi's a guy that they're probably going to try to move. Dylan Larkin's still unsigned.
Yeah.
They have to sign him. They can't make a mistake letting him go. He's such a talent. So, Detroit's got a lot of options. Teams are probably going to be calling Stevie Yzerman. He knows how to make that hockey trade. He makes that trade that nobody expects to come. So, Detroit to me is a little bit away, but I think they have some pieces teams would like.
Agreed. A general comment here that's not it. Rick Sherlock, Jim, does refereeing ever get ugly for you?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes there's fights.
Yeah.
Well, got to break it up.
Yeah. Sometimes you just let them go, right? I guess it depends on the game. CA talking about the top four in the Western Conference match up well against the top four in the East, other than maybe the Bruins, as we've already talked about.
Yeah, I mean, the Devils beat Vegas already this year. They beat LA. They lost to Seattle in overtime. They just beat Dallas. I think the top four in the East are a little bit better than the top four in the West right now.
Yeah. Billy talks about the NHL playoffs starting lasting like 3 months. They ought to get longer. The NBA and the NHL their playoffs are pretty soon will be as long as the regular seasons, but
the playoffs are great. That's why I think Gary's so hesitant to expand it because it's so long, but B, there's, everything, with the NBA going on with the load management and everything. I know he's not addressed it and the tanking and everything, but I think that's a big reason why he doesn't want to expand the playoffs because, again, the load management that's in the NBA, there's already talk. Not that there's talk, but, the Bruins, how well they're playing, they have an older roster. Does Bergeron sit out? It's not the mentality of a hockey player to sit out. But if there's like a road trip, you want to play back-to-back, just stay home a little bit, maybe just rest that nagging injury before the playoffs. Maybe that's something that comes up. Austin Matthews got a knee sprain. He probably didn't want to go to the All-Star game, so he's like, just shut me down for a little bit. But again, it's not the mentality of hockey players to take time off. They play through anything.
Great. We talked about Buffalo's resurgence. It would be a shame, I guess, if they have a great year and then they got to match up with the Bruins in the first round. But
that's the way the playoffs work. Sometimes if you're the worst team, you get the best team, and Boston and Buffalo always play great games, so the series will probably be really good if they get there. But Boston to me is the best team right now, and it's Boston versus the field.
Larry Brooks had an article in the Post today, and I don't think it's the first one he's had ripping the NHL playoff format. What are your feelings on the format itself, and is there a better one that you would suggest?
I like the old 1 through 8. I was always a big fan of that.
Yeah.
I know the divisional format was about rivalries and creating rivalries, and then the whole schmaz about, we need, that's how we build the rivalries and everything. But the problem is you have good teams going home in the first round.
Yeah.
And you want your best teams to be there at the end. I always like the 1 through 8, even though I knew upsets would always happen in that format too. But I'm a fan of the 1 through 8 ranking.
Billy's talking. He's agreeing about it being in person. Yes, hockey's so much better in person. I mean, it's a great sport, but on TV, but it's much harder. They've tried all kinds of gimmicks to gimmick it up on TV, but just forget about it. Again, watch the game in person and then watch it on TV, and you get a much better appreciation for what's going on.
Yep.
Dallas heavy on the OT. They need a legitimate backup to spell him until the playoffs. CA's comment.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Ottinger is playing well. I mean, he's getting a heavy workload. I mean, Scott Wedgwood's come in nicely, filled in really good. Solid backup, but I think I agree. I think they need to maybe upgrade that position just a little bit to, give Ottinger more time off come the playoffs, because if they keep playing him, he's going to be worn down.
And I think the answer here is obvious. No, they don't.
No.
You just need 16 wins. That's all
you just need 16 wins. That's it.
Go 16 and 15 if that's possible. I think it is.
No, Max, you come. No,
you got to be 1 game ahead. It's got to be 3 games, right?
Yeah.
I went to Perth. My math is not that good. So a lot of comments today. Great job, guys, with the comments and the questions. Good job, Jim. What else should we know about what's going on in the NHL before we speak again?
Well, the All-Star break is next week.
Next weekend, right?
Is the All-Star break. The bye weeks are coming in now for the NHL. There's not a lot of games over these next 2 weeks because teams are on byes. Everybody's heading south, or maybe the family trips they're going to skiing someplace, but everybody's trying to get warm. And while some players will enjoy going to South Florida for the NHL All-Star game this year. Just for me, one of my pet peeves is with the skills competition. Stop trying to overthink this stuff and just keep it simple when it comes to the skills competition. I understand they're trying to, it's about the fans and it's about all that stuff and everything. But like some of the events, it's just like, all right, it's like, all right, we don't need to do like these dunk, like this, like hit the puck, try to dunk somebody. It's like, I'm so used to accuracy, hardest shot, breakaway challenge, fastest skater, like elimination shootout. I'm like, that's about it. That's all I need. It's just fun. But again, there's still a lot of time to the trade deadline, which is at a Friday. Yeah. There's so many rumors out there right now, more than in years past. It's just something you got to keep your ear to, because maybe there'll be a trade or two beforehand.
Well, we'll get you on next week if you're available, because I'll be somewhere warm for the next 2 Sundays, and I'll probably do something quickly. I'll do show quickly, but it's hard to get guests on. So then we'll be able to catch up. I'll be back on the 20. The next time I'll be able to have you on after next week would be like the 20, I don't know, whatever it is, 29th or 20, no, when am I back? 24th, so whatever that Sunday is following that. And Billy wants you to know you're 100% right, as he's been testing you today. So I'm sure that makes you happy. The questions aren't very hard, though, it seems right now. Well, there's a good question, I guess, before we wrap up today. Do you feel anybody was snubbed for the All-Star team?
Not really. I don't really get upset about snubs anymore, about All-Star teams. I mean,
this thing with snubs, if you're going to say this guy belongs, then you got to take somebody off. That's the thing.
Right. Well, the thing is like with the All-Star game, if it's going to be a true All-Star game, I understand, like, again, as I said, it's not about me. It's not about, regular hockey fans. It's about growing the game and casual fan. And I just hate this one player per team thing. Like, I really do. Like, you have to select one player. If it's a true All-Star game, then have the best players there. It doesn't matter if the best player is, if it's all from Boston and Tampa, or there's a couple guys here and there, fine. But I understand if fans go, they want to see their guy there. So I really don't get upset about snubs, because everybody was talking about snubs after the NHL announced everything, but then the fans voted the guys in anyway. So it's like, okay, what am I getting upset about?
Agreed. Well, Jim, as always, thank you for coming in with your update. And guys, thanks for bringing in the comments and the questions today. You guys were really, really good. Jim, we'll have you, if you're available next week, let's get together, because again, it'll be 3 weeks where you get a chance to catch up with you again. So let's do that. And I'll say go 49ers and Bengals. You can say something else if you like.
Yeah, I'll go 49ers and Bengals. Let's go. Let's
right.
go, baby. Let's go. No, but thanks for having me in. Always a pleasure to do this for you guys. Talk some hockey. Comments were great today. So hopefully we can keep it going.
Guys, go subscribe to fullpresshockey.com. Great articles by Jim and everybody else there. Good stuff. Thanks, Jim. Well, have a great Sunday.
Hey, you too. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The great Jim Biringer from fullpresshockey.com, as I said, and Let's Talk Sports. He does a lot of stuff for Dan Harris's. And again, good morning to Dan, if you're still here with us. Great job by Jim. Let's jump back into some NFL talk. I'm just going to put up my general NFL news and notes because we're going to talk. We can talk more about the games. I want to talk coaches. I want to talk quarterbacks, and then we'll get into some baseball after that. So we've talked already. Let's back up because we were talking about last week's game, and I think I ended before I got to Jim talking about the Giants and Eagles. Giants fans, get used to the fact that you need Daniel Jones re-signed. You got problem with your cap. You got to re-sign Saquon and Jones. And if you've got a choice to make, it's Daniel Jones. Don't tell me how bad he played against the Eagles. He has nothing to work with. His offensive line is not that good. It's better, but it's not that good. And he has nobody to go to the ball, throw the ball to. So Daniel Jones has shown this year. I went through this again, and I'll go through it again for you guys if I have to today. I went through this on Friday's show. I went through it a couple of different times. I cannot come up with 10 quarterbacks I'd rather have than Daniel Jones on my team. I'd rather have more than Mac Jones right now. Daniel Jones has played very good football this year. He's progressed very well the last 4 years. Now, the Giants want to keep his contract in, reasonable, but as I say in every sport, there's one dumb owner that's going to give him a bunch of years and a bunch of money. So don't be surprised, when he's making $30 million a year next year. Or you start over, which is kind of stupid when you think about it. Well, let's see what we got here. Spotty connection issues on Cree. Yeah, I sometimes see, I don't know. I don't think you were with us when I've always, tried to do, I'll do short shows and they're not always, just so you guys know. And I'll talk more about it during my shows leading up to next Sunday or the Wednesday before, college football show I'll do on the 8th. That'll be the last show I do in the studio. I do try to do my shows. They'll be at different times. I get on when I can get on. And sometimes the connection's good. Sometimes it's not. Rick always says it looks good. And when I go back and review it, sorry for the cough because I couldn't get to the button. I go back and I look at it and it's a little spotty, as you said, but we'll have a great time. And I do love going live and we'll do as much as we can. And we'll do some of the guest shots that we do too. Danny Dimes is a good quarterback. I am not telling you it by any stretch of the imagination that he is, in the elite. But he's better than 3/4 of the quarterbacks in the league today. Now, that may speak to how bad the quarterback position is. And you're going to have a lot of guys looking for quarterbacks. So it's going to be interesting what happens. And, if somebody gets stupid like Carolina, I mean, I don't know really who's got the money to throw around. New Orleans. These are all teams. Your Lions. I mean, here's a good question for you, Smoking Jeremy. Jared Goff had a really good year this year, especially for Jared Goff. But I would say Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. I know you're not a Giant fan. I find it obnoxious. Not from you, but from Giant fans. Would you rather have Danny Dimes, and I'll say it now, than Jared Goff going forward? I don't know. I would rather have Daniel Jones. And I'm not a Giants fan, guys. There's nobody. Remember, when I have these comments about the Jets and the Giants, like when I do Let's Talk New York Sports with Dan Harris, I'll tell you as I see it. I hate the Giants. Nobody hates the Giants more than me. Never had a problem. It does cost me jewelry. Yes, it's always expensive trip, but it's fun, and I like to take care of my wife. What we got here? I missed one from Smoking Jeremy. Mac Jones, when he was drafted, was the most pro-ready quarterback coming out. Certainly agree with that. The problem was his ceiling was so high. I don't think we've seen his ceiling. The problem with Daniel Jones this year, and I have Mac Jones. The problem with Mac Jones this year, as I see it, was the dysfunction in the coaching staff. Bill Belichick set him up to fail by not having a real offensive coordinator, not having a real quarterback coach. In fact, he had a quarterback coach who he had severe communication issues with. Joe Judge needs to be somewhere else. Now he's got a strong, real offensive coordinator, a real offensive mind in Bill O'Brien, who's very, very good at this part of the game, and a guy who knows how to deal with quarterbacks. Worked quite a while with number 12 as the quarterback coach and later the offensive coordinator after Josh McDaniel left the first time. I have not given up on Mac Jones, but if you told me today I could have Daniel Jones, I would probably take him. It's not happening. That's it is a fun remote. I like doing the remotes. It's always fun. I find a different place on the ship to do it. I do it from one of the taverns. I do it from, the Lido deck. I do it from sitting on a deck chair somewhere. Watch out for the black kitties. I don't even want to know what you're talking about. Who are you talking about? Maybe I'm just, my mind is gone in a bad place here. Panthers? Can you be talking about the Florida Panthers? I don't know what you're talking about. Jeremy, Smoking Jeremy. I said last year that he had a turnaround in year one with Ben Johnson off corner. I would have extended him last offseason. Well, that's a problem. Well, you know what? I really think, that's a good call, but I really think they found themselves probably in the same position that the Giants found themselves in with if we're talking about, I think we're talking about, well, it doesn't matter if we're talking about Daniel Jones or Jared Goff, because I can't remember who Ben Johnson was the OC for. But either one we're talking about, they had to wait to see if they were that guy. Daniel Jones, the Giants had to wait. It's not an Aaron Judge situation, right, where the Yankees cost themselves a bunch of money and Aaron Jones bet on himself. The Giants bet against Daniel Jones because they weren't sure. Now it's going to cost them a bunch more money than it would have. He will do much better with Bill O'Brien, and I think his ceiling, you may be right about the ceiling. Again, I do not think Mac Jones will reach the, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen level ever. But I do think Mac Jones is a quarterback who can win in the NFL and win playoff games, which is as important as anything else, because Derek Carrs of the world go out and have put up good numbers, maybe not this year, and don't win playoff games. Again, I'm sorry if you're still here, Alan. Dak Prescott. I don't care how good you are in the regular season. Until you win playoff games consistently, you're not an elite quarterback in this league. Yeah, I did ask you about golf. That's what I thought you were doing. Sometimes with the delay, I don't know if we're still on the same wavelength. That's all. So thank you. And the Ben Johnson, because the name wasn't ringing a bell with Ben Johnson as offensive coordinator. So thank you for that. So again, if you had a choice, if you could move on, if you had a way to move on from golf, and I don't even know if you do, would you want Daniel Jones? I would take him over golf myself. The kittens. I got you. Frank Reich might not be a good coach. The reason Indy fail. Listen, I don't disagree with this. Indy failed was the quarterbacks he asked for. Well, if he asked for Phillip Rivers, a washed up, used up Phillip Rivers, who I never thought was that great a quarterback anyway. Listen, Phillip Rivers, toughness can't be questioned. But Phillip Rivers, he's never a guy that I thought was, in the top level of quarterbacks. Matt Ryan is used up. I mean, there's people think that Matty Ice is going to the Hall of Fame. I don't think he is. And I love the kid. Saw him play nearly his whole career at Boston College when Josh Beekman from Amsterdam, who will certainly recognize the name, was out there at Boston College playing offensive line, and Matt Ryan was there at the same time. Saw him grow as a quarterback into a number, I think the 5th pick in the draft for the Falcons. A very good quarterback for a long time, but again, a compiler without a great resume, other than the worst collapse in Super Bowl history, and I'll blame the coaching staff more than him. Good morning, Scott Colby. Good to have you with us. I agree. The Patriots need to re-sign Jacoby Myers. Again, we need game breakers. So we need playmakers at some of those skill positions, but that does not mean it has to come at the expense of Jacoby Myers, because you also need guys that move the chains. Jacoby Myers is not flashy, but Jacoby Myers is a guy who gets first downs, makes a tough catch when you need it. He even scored 6 touchdowns this year, which, by the way, is about 3 times his career total. Not totally impressed with Mac Jones yet. I'm not either, Drew, to be clear. I was last year, and he had his moments where he played like a rookie quarterback. And his regression this year was not entirely his fault, or at all his fault. Again, Bill Belichick, this was Bill Belichick's worst coaching job. He's made a career in New England of winning for a couple of very good reasons. One, Tom Brady was his quarterback. And secondly, he put guys in positions to succeed. Right? And this year he goes against that with his coaching staff, because if you're going to tell me in any way, shape, or form that their best option this year to put both the coaches and Mac Jones in the offense in a position to succeed was to take a defensive-minded, brilliant defensive mind, a rocket science literally, who's got a degree from RPI Engineering School here, and Matt Patricia as your offensive play caller, de facto offensive coordinator without the title, and Joe Judge, the quarterback coach, who's got the people skills of freaking, I don't know, Richard Nixon. Come up with any name you want. It was never going to work. And Mac Jones regressed because of it. And then Bill tried very hard to create his own quarterback controversy that didn't need to happen in midseason. Anyway, what do you got here? But his ragtag mishmash of receivers does not exude confidence, except maybe Myers. Agreed. I agree. As I said, listen, a guy that I do like that they misused all year, and every week I said before the games, they need to find a way to get Kendrick Bourne involved, and every week they failed until late in the season, where a few times he had more touches and they did a better job of getting him in a position to succeed. He's a guy that I would like to see stay as well, but only if you're going to utilize him right. And Bill O'Brien might do that. Aguiar can go. Parker can go. Thornton showed some flashes. The rookie out of Baylor showed some flashes this year. The backfield's good. Rondé Stevenson is going to be an elite back in this league. You watch. And as the season went on, he got more and more involved in the offense. The passing offense. 69 catches, I think he had. Most of them later in the year. Oh, where are we? Got a lot of comments. You guys are on fire with comments tonight. Keep firing tonight. I doubt Sam Darnold is the starting quarterback in Carolina. Scott, I don't disagree with that. Sam Darnold probably, you saw, speaking of ceilings, I mean, he played better last year once he came back, I don't know, the last quarter of the season. Probably helps him getting Frank Reich in there, but I don't know that he'll be the quarterback either. You saw his ceiling in those last 4 games, let's say. I just don't think he's the answer there. I doubt Frank Reich will think so either. So they don't have a quarterback in-house. Careful, Giant fans. Daniel Jones. By the way, a team I left out on Daniel Jones. Don't sleep on the Jets. If I'm the Jets, I got to go kick the tires on Daniel Jones, don't I? Matt Ryan had the biggest win of his career at BC against Notre Dame. Absolutely. You know what? Matty Ryan had a really nice college career. It never until his senior season did I even think he'd be an NFL player, to be honest with you. And that's watching him in person nearly every home game. Or many home games. But he developed nicely under trying to think. I can't remember who the head coach was at that point now. It's slipping my mind. I want to say O'Brien, but that's not right. He's out of coaching now. He left to go to North Carolina State and don't know where he is now. Jeremy B, we cannot move. We really cannot move on this season. It only saves $10 million. We're talking about golf here, I believe. It only saves $10 million in cap. What would the hit be? They only have $17 million in cap space, really. Guess you're stuck with I guess you're stuck with Goff. Again, decent player, played good enough to get the Rams to a Super Bowl and had a pretty good year that year until the Super Bowl. I had a pretty good year this year. Had a couple of valleys in the middle of the season, but it's a team on the rise, and who knows? Maybe he continues to improve with them. Man, I tell you, Andrew Luck retiring, and this is a great point, Drew. Andrew Luck retiring really left the Colts in a lurch because they weren't prepared for it, obviously. He does. I did read an article recently, too, that he kind of down again. He thinks maybe he, pulled the plug too soon. But he felt it was the best thing for him to do. And, hey, and the Colts will struggle, as every team will, until they find a quarterback. And you've got to stop chasing guys that are used up. Not every guy's Tom Brady. And Tom Brady should retire, with that said. But not every guy's Tom Brady. There are things you can't do in your late 30s that you could do at 30. Keith, what do I think about getting DeAndre Hopkins in a trade? I know Belichick loves him. He does love him, and I would love to see DeAndre Hopkins come here. I don't know that Belichick and the Patriots will be willing to give up the draft capital that it'll likely take to get him. The Cardinals are probably going to be starting over, whether that's with Kyler Murray, who knows. So they'll be looking to move him and I think get a pretty good price for him. Now, with that said, you're right. Belichick loves him. In fact, there's a video from when the Cardinals played the Patriots this year of them having a love fest, basically. So I guarantee you, if we were somehow to find a way to get DeAndre Hopkins, the Patriots would probably have a tampering charge level against them by some jealous NFL team. Just getting out in front of that, guys. So remember, I said that when it happens. What's my opinion about Mel Kiper? Having the Jets taking wide receivers. You know what? First of all, I don't know where the Giants draft off the top of my head. And Blue City Empire Sports, another new commenter today. Welcome to you. Great to have you with us this morning. If the Giants could find themselves in a position to take Jordan Addison in the draft, I think that would be a very smart move for the Giants. Giants needs wide receivers. I have great hope for Wan'Dale Robinson coming back next year healthy. I loved him coming out of Kentucky. I thought he was a great draft pick by the Giants, and if he can get himself healthy, I think that offensive coaching staff led by Dabo And Kafka can certainly get this kid moving in the right direction. So now if you get him and you have Addison, I don't know, maybe Hodkins is somebody that can be a third receiver. I mean, you saw him have a nice game against the Vikings, and then you saw him disappear against the Eagles. So kind of tells you about his talent level. You know, they got to find a way to jettison Galladay. I would love to see the Giants get him, but I don't know that he's going to be around when the Giants pick is the problem. Maybe he'll fall that far, but I love the kid. I think he's a great player. Problem with the Pats offense was Judge and Matt Patricia. No penalty for spelling here, spoken Jeremy. The rocket scientist that cannot coach his way out of a paper. Listen, Matt Patricia is a really good football coach. He is not a really good offensive play caller. End of story. He's probably, I would not doubt that Matt Patricia is going to be in the front office or an administrative type role next year because Bill O'Brien's actively looking for an offensive line coach. By all accounts, the Patriots are in love with Adrian Clem, who's out at Oregon. Dante Scarnecchia, legendary Patriot coach, offensive line coach much of that time. Loves the kid and has given him great grades. And O'Brien's going to be in charge of hiring these coaches for the offense, and Matt Patricia will not be one of them. College football. What do you got? Throw it at me. It's a stream of consciousness show. Jacoby Myers, backup quarterback for the Patriots in 23. Listen, Jacoby Myers had some good throws. I'm trying to remember if we saw any this year, but Frank Reich will trade for Babe Borelli. It's awesome. Hey, maybe he brings in Brady to Carolina. Where's Tommy going to go? I love the rumors that he's looking for schools in Miami. Well, they live in Miami. Him and Giselle both live in Miami. They share custody of their kids. Where are they going to look for schools? I don't see him going to Miami. I think if Tommy plays, it's with the Raiders or nobody. That's what I think. I really hope he retires because I don't want to see a Wyatt Tittle moment. I really don't. Carolina, the Lions are accepting trades to 6. Just saying, there you go. Listen, quarterbacks coming out of the draft. You need a quarterback, Carolina. Well, they've got, who do they have? They didn't draft one of the kids last year, right? So they don't have anybody. I'm telling you, and I will continue to tell you, Will Levis is the number 1 quarterback in this draft. He may not go first. I think he will. It's possible the Lions pick him, to be honest with you, if they want to potentially get ready to move on from Goff. Indianapolis is rumored to take Levis as well. He could be the first quarterback taken. I think he's going to be better than Stroud and Young. I think Stroud will be better than Young. But it's going to be very interesting what happens there. I did see you met Carolina. Tom O'Brien, thank you very much. I knew that. I know I had the O'Brien name right. Going back a lot of years, my brain doesn't, and Jury can attest to this. I have trouble retrieving the knowledge. I have it, just finding it. Home golf is really good. Road golf is awful. 23rd at home. 23 touchdowns at home, 6 on the road. Interesting. Well, that speaks to the team as much as the quarterback, though. But good point. If Cooks and Reynolds didn't drop 3 passes that hit them in the hands, the Rams would have won that Super Bowl. Final score was 10-3. Was it 10-3? I think it was. You know what? A lot of people, and again, if my aunt had different equipment, she'd be my uncle. Just an FYI. Sorry. Are we still on the air? A lot of people talk about that Super Bowl, how boring it was. Well, maybe if you're not a Patriot or Rams fan, it was boring. It wasn't boring for me even a little bit. The game hinged on nearly every possession. It could have changed. So those type of games, I don't necessarily find boring. If my team wasn't involved, I probably would feel the same way. Healthy Hopkins is the best. I agree wholeheartedly. You guys are great with the comments here today. As I say, you guys are my co-hosts, and you're doing a tremendous job today. Addison would be an excellent addition for them. We're talking about the Giants, I'm sure. Absolutely. Addison would be a good addition for most NFL teams. I love this kid. He's going to be a star at the next level. Kenny and the King of Cliches. Kenny's missing. Kenny's probably already looking for a place to watch the game at 3 o'clock because he can't get Fox up on the mountain. And I don't know where the Mad New Yorker is today. This is an interesting one. Drew, the Jets fire Mike LaFleur for scoring no touchdowns basically in the last 3 games. The offense really went in the crapper when Hall went down because he was having a great year running back. And if you go back and look, the Jets' downfall, I want to say they were 6-2 when Hall got hurt. I could be off by a game or two. But that's when their fall happened because they couldn't run the ball anymore. And then Mike LaFleur also says, they made a mistake in playing Zach Wilson. So you sat there and you admitted all the mistakes that you made in 2 years. You didn't score any touchdowns in the last 3 games. And then you get fired. And the Rams somehow think this is a good idea. And by the way, this was his first gig as an offensive coordinator. He was a passing game coordinator with the 49ers before the Jets hired him. And it's an example of, and I talk about this a lot too, or have talked about this a lot too. I talked about it with Dan Harris, talked about it with Mac and Jack and Jim Jeffco. Guys who get hired, first-time head coaches. If you're proficient in defense, you're a defensive coordinator, for example, I guess the example, you need to hire a really experienced, strong offensive coordinator. And vice versa. If you're a first-time head coach and you're an offensive coordinator, you need to hire a very strong veteran defense coordinator. Brian Daboll did that with the Giants. This year, Robert Saleh didn't do that last year. So Daboll hopefully learned from that experience, and it was certainly beneficial to the Giants to do that. Late round sleeper per the combine, Bryce Ford Wheaton out of Virginia. Interesting. We'll be talking more about the NFL draft both here, and we'll get into it a little bit on the college sports huddle as well on Wednesday nights. Follow that show if you like college sports. Smoke and Jeremy and some of our other newbies today. Please pop in on Wednesdays. We do that. And Are You Serious on Fridays if you want to hear cliches right and left from the Mad New Yorker. We'll keep an eye on that name. Matt Patricia. You don't like to spell his name right. Maybe you're doing that on purpose because he was your head coach. So I can understand why you have a bias. I just realized that I should have remembered that from the last comment. Matt Patricia is one of those guys who, and there's a lot of guys out there who are really good coordinators, and in this case, a defensive coordinator, but not good head coaches. Tons of them. And he was a horrible head coach with the Lions. So I can understand why you're upset, and I don't even need to ask you because I saw it too. Jacoby Myers was a quarterback in college, and he's also thrown several. He may, if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to go back and look at his numbers. He's thrown several touchdown passes with the Patriots, and they have utilized him in that the way they did Edelman before that. Edelman was a college quarterback as well at, I want to say, Kent State. FSU wins the ACC. I'll buy that, and make sure we'll get into a lot of this on the sports huddle on Wednesdays soon. As we start, it won't be long. We'll be in the spring practices, right? I hope. I like Florida State. They've got a lot of kids coming back, including the kid I mentioned, the defensive lineman. Excuse me. He transferred from Albany State. He would have been a first-round draft pick this year. And he's not. He's going to come back to school. So they got, and their quarterback's coming back. A lot of returning players. Mike Norvell's turned the corner. This was a key year for Mike Norvell. He would have got fired. Yeah, he just got the Edelman treatment in, well, as he should, because he's not good enough to be an NFL quarterback, obviously. Neither was Edelman. But they certainly are really good football players that you need to take advantage of the skill set that they have. And they've done a great job with both those players. Tennessee's another place I guess I could see Brady going. Yeah, I guess I really would think if he stays, maybe it'll be somebody that he knows. Vrabel, obviously Josh McDaniel with the Raiders. I just want him to retire because it's not going to get any better. I mean, there's no way we're getting better. We're going to see more of the bad Brady than the good Brady every year we go forward now. And Brady had his moments this year. He had his moments where he led his team back several times. I know against the Rams. Trying to think of the Cardinals. Several games he looked like Tom Brady, but other times he looked like a guy I'd never seen play before. The playoff game against Dallas, they couldn't run the football. I know he was pressured, but I'm watching him throw the ball where there's 4 guys standing around a receiver. Yeah, well, this is why Carolina needs a quarterback, right? Darnold, no good. PJ Walker, no good. Billy, good to have you with us today. Thanks for coming in. Go Winnipeg Jets. I guess you can say go Jets because you got Winnipeg to root for yet. Bigger needs on defense, especially defensive tackle and cornerback. Not sure where we're, again, we're talking about your team. Because we get ahead. Remember, I'm kind of jumping around here, Smoking Jeremy. So when you make that comment, say Giants have bigger needs, Lions, Patriots. Patriots, by the way, definitely have needs at cornerback as well. But I think you're probably talking about your Lions. 13-3 Super Bowl against the Rams. 13-3, whatever. I found it an exciting game. Others didn't. I know the next day the headlines are the most boring Super Bowl ever. Well, if you think close games are boring, then I guess so. If you don't like defensive battles, then I guess so. And if your team's not involved, I get it. For your Lions, yes. I would say defense. Your defense certainly was not very good this year, but you've got some building blocks there. Right? The kid from Michigan didn't have a bad rookie season. I don't think it's going to take a lot to turn that defense around. I think, as you said, a couple pieces, and that defense will be very much better. It's the most we've talked about the Lions ever. The Wilkes-Fleury, good call here, Drew. Wilkes-Fleury situation, the credibility of Fleury's discrimination suit. It's funny, we've heard nothing about the discrimination. I personally, it's possible this situation will impact the suit. I think Wilkes should have got the job in Carolina, to be honest with you. I thought he did a really good job the second half of the season. The players played hard for him. Frank Reich doesn't instill any great confidence in me because I don't have that quarterback. If I had that quarterback in place, and if I'm going to rely on Frank Reich to bring in the right guys, Scott Cote said the right thing. It might be Babe Parilli this time. And it could, Drew, impact this Fleury's discrimination suit. And I don't even know where it stands. It's funny. We haven't heard anything about it basically since September. And Fleury's was being mentioned. He interviewed with a couple of teams this year. I think he interviewed with a couple of teams this year. He was with Pittsburgh, I believe, this year. He's a good coach. I personally think the discrimination suit was probably the wrong way to go. I think there might have been other ways to get his point and Bill Belichick got himself sucked into that. I mean, again, what happens is, if Brian Daboll, teams often have their sights set on a guy and they're forced to go through the interview process because of the Rooney Rule, right? And if they like Brian Daboll starting more than they like Brian Flores, which is basically what we're talking about, but how do you know if you don't bring in Flores? Flores could have blown them away, and then they say now all of a sudden that turns the table. To me, it's more that what went on with Miami is his issue and should be his issue, that the team wanted to tank. He said no. He had some issues with Tua, and probably rightfully so, and now they got the weirdest guy in the NFL coaching them down there. But it's going to be interesting. You're right. This situation, the Wilkes situation, could influence the discrimination suit. If I had one free agent signed this year with the Patriots, who would it be? Well, that's a good one. I had an answer for this. Let me hang on. Bear with me. You guys talk amongst yourselves, if you would. I had the name is escaping me here. Let's see. I want unrestricted free agents. How about Tom Brady? No, I'm just kidding. It wouldn't be Tom Brady. I'll tell you who it would be. I don't want quarterbacks. Why do I have quarterbacks? Jeez. If I had one guy, come on, give me an update here. How about, I'm just looking through this list here. Certainly not Clowney. I'll tell you what, if I didn't have two guys I was already paying a bunch to, it'd be Evan Ingram. Let's see who the wide receivers are real quick. Wide receivers and cornerbacks. There's not a wide receiver. I looked at this list the other day. There's not a wide receiver out there that I would say I got to have that guy and he's going to be a game changer. Not a guy. Now, what I really want to look at are the cornerbacks. I'll get back to your comments here in a second. We're going to move on to some baseball, just so you guys know, as soon as we clean up some comments. Man, there's not even a Patrick Peterson is not a young guy. 32, he's too old. Eli Apple, I don't like. Young guy. He's a young guy, but I don't necessarily like his game. I don't know. I really don't know. Let's say Evan Ingram and move on from what we got now. I don't know what the cap situation is. Their cap situation is really good. I don't know what the cap hit would be from, say, moving on from Jonnu Smith and or Hunter Henry. I like Evan Ingram a lot. He got coached up really well in Jacksonville. He's unrestricted. It's possible he comes out. 8 catches, 2 seasons. Kenny Galladay's totally worth that $19 million. Thanks for right. That's you can thank Gettleman, I believe, for that one. Yeah, and you get a comp pick. Irsay's still pushing Saturday. You know what? Irsay's a freaking. You know what? If he wants this, does anybody here think that Jeff Saturday? Is there anything that we saw in his short term that says, oh, we were wrong about Jeff Saturday and, Irsay was right for hiring his drinking buddy? No. Irsay will set his franchise back 5 years if he hires him. First-time head coach, they need experienced guys behind them based on what I was saying before. Whether recent player, I agree. Absolutely agree. You need some experienced coaches when you're a first-time guy. And in a perfect world, on the other side of the football than your proficiencies are. I did see Flores was looking at each other, I guess, to be their defensive coordinator. You could do worse. This guy is a really good football coach, Rick. Really good defensive coordinator with the Patriots. I don't think he had the title. to be honest with you, but he was a de facto defensive coordinator before he got the Miami job. Listen, this is the best coach available outside of Sean Payton. He's the best coach available, and teams aren't going to hire him. Miami with Josh Gaddis may give OSU fits. Wish Gaddis was still. Listen, I'm a Hurricane fan, so we'll see how that works out. A lot of work to do down there, but I do think they could be a turnaround again. Check out the college football, college sports huddle, I guess, on Wednesday nights. There's normal guy again. LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels is coming back as well. Yes, another good. A lot of guys came back. We went through probably the top 20 guys that are returning that could have gone into the draft on Wednesday night. So check out last Wednesday's college sports huddle. You can catch it on TGI Sports Talk. Please, guys, if you're new to the show, I know you guys are watching on YouTube, probably Let's Talk Sports or mine. Go to Let's Talk. Yes, please subscribe to Let's Talk Sports. But go to what's the name of my frickin' channel? TGI Sports Talk, please. And like and follow the show and share it with your friends. We like to have some fun. Rodgers of Tennessee makes more sense. You know, who's going to pay? I mean, seriously, he says he wants $60 million to come back. Plus, he's a freaking diva. I don't discount the fact that he bought a house outside of Nashville, though. I did that one time when Giselle and Tom were selling a house in Boston, and I said, big deal. People buy and sell houses all the time. It doesn't mean he's leaving the Patriots. Made a great call there, didn't I? All right, let me get through the rest of these comments here quickly. Saints. Maybe. I think he retires. I'm trying to follow along. I made the comments as you talk. No, don't worry about it. It's hard, Jeremy, because especially when we have a lot, which I like. You just put a little something in there so I know which one we're going back to, and it's easier for me. Or I guess, and we correct me later. You do a podcast. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Listen, Smoke and Jeremy, send me the link to the podcast. I'll be glad to promote you a little bit as well, and I hope you'll do the same. Great having you with us today. I enjoyed the back and forth with you as well. There you go. Current. I can't click on that here, but you guys can probably click on it in the comments. We'll check this out. I think Brian, as I said, Brian Flores, if you're not getting Sean Payton, Brian Flores is the next best coach available. Let me finish up these comments because I want to get to some baseball. Well, there's a baseball comment right there. Let me come back to that. Let me see what we got here, Drew. I'll come right back. What do you think of Prine? I don't know. Listen, he's a really good player and a really good piece that winning teams need on them. He played well in the Super Bowl last year. He played well in the playoffs, I think, all around last year, and he's a good change of pace back for Mixon to give him a spell. So I think that'll be good. You think he's a better back than Mixon today? Oh, I don't know about that. Mixon had a nice game last week. Mixon gets involved in the so does Prime. Listen, they're 1-1A, and they need to move to run the ball. I got it's funny and get to Northeast Streaming Sports too. This is I think Mac from Mac and Jack and Jim this morning. I was given to you on my way out, and I didn't get them in quick enough. I got the 49ers and the Bengals. All right, Drew, we're going to move on to some baseball here. Move on to baseball. Baseball, Chapman to KC. Duvall is the answer in Boston. No, he's not. Duvall's a nice player. Duvall's got a decent, he's got a really good glove, actually. Was a big piece of that Braves World Series championship a couple of years ago, but he's not a guy who's good. This Boston team's finishing last. And nothing from Allen on his Rangers. Yeah, I saw that. Allen's probably moved on because he didn't have an answer, probably. And good luck to Kansas City, by the way, with Chapman. Oh my God! What other news we got in baseball? I want to go through the. I want to get the Hall of Fame voting in here. I thought I had it up, and I don't. Plus, I want to get to some other news here. That's not 2021. What the hell is that? Nobody cares about that. I'd love to know why my wife is slamming the door downstairs, though. I hope you guys can't hear that. Where are we? I'll find it. All I care about is the numbers, man. Is this it? That's the November. Well, anyway, we'll just talk about it. I don't need the numbers. Scott Rolen gets in. Help me out, Drew. Todd Helton, I think, is at 72%. Wagner, who Drew turned me around on this year, is going to get in next year. Helton's probably getting in next year as well. I don't think Helton deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. His numbers are really off the here we go. Thank you. Scott Rolen, 76% gets in. Not easily, but gets in again. Listen, Scott Rolen, and I know Drew and I have a difference of opinion on some of the Saber metrics and things that I'm told I have to pay attention to. That, you know, I'm okay paying attention to counting stats and my eyeballs. You know, I don't need to dive into a guy's. I don't need the whole slide ruler thing and, you know, be able to have to be Matt Patricia and a rocket scientist to figure out how good a guy is. I can watch him and figure it out. Scott Rolen's a really good player. But again, if Scott Rolen deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and I think we're lowering the bar myself. And if that's the case, fine. But then I want to see Greg Nettles in. I compared on my vlog last week. Nettles and Rolen's numbers, more home runs, more RBIs. Didn't win as many gold gloves because he had to go up against Brooks Robinson for probably 10 years when his career started. Not 10 years. That's an exaggeration. At least 5 years. Nobody has ever turned a World Series around defensively like Greg Nettles in 1978. Go watch Game 3 of the 1978 World Series and tell me you've ever seen a better third baseman than Greg Nettles play. Eye test. Home run champion, as many All-Stars as Rolen. Again, nice player, but let's start reevaluating some of these other guys. Todd Helton will probably get in next year. 72% he got. Nobody's ever got that much without getting in. I doubt anybody's ever got 68% like Wagner. And after last week's conversation and me kind of berating Wagner, Drew has turned me around a little bit on that. And we'll get to your comments here in a second. I want to change my... let's just do... there. Andrew Jones, who I think should be a Hall of Famer. Again, if your barometer for Scott Rolen at third base is what it is, how's Andrew Jones not in there? Look at the 10-year peak of his career, both home run-wise and gold glove-wise. There may never have been a better defensive center fielder than Andrew Jones. Gary Sheffield is probably going to be done next year. Carlos Beltran, maybe he'll keep crawling up. Jeff Kent is out. I think Jeff Kent, on this ballot, if we're going to exclude steroids, guys, and I'll talk about that in a second. If we're going to exclude steroid guys, Jeff Kent's the one guy I would have voted for because he dominated his position for an extended period of time, which is really should be one of the criteria, or it used to be. I don't know. Let's see what we got here. I know we got some comments. And I think I'm Duval Duvall strikes out way too much and doesn't hit for average. Agreed. He hits home runs. Had a great run with Atlanta there the second half of the season 2 years ago and was a big factor in them winning the World Series, but he's not a guy that – he can't be a main guy in your offense. And betting under on 85, you should. I don't think that – if that's the over-under – take your entire life saving. No, don't do that. I would never ask somebody to do that. This team ain't winning over 85 games. No way. Alan has his show running now from the movie Officer and Gentleman. The only thing that comes out of Oklahoma is, oh, that's a good one. What's the answer? Dustin. Dustin what? I don't know. Help me out, Rick. Gotta put the answer up. Lots of long-term contracts tying up younger players and managers. I love when this happens. Good job at the Mets extending McNeil. Not necessarily a young player, though. We saw this pattern started a little while ago, right? With Tatis and there's somebody else I'm trying to think of. But here's the problem, Drew. What's the point of tying these guys up at team-friendly costs and then giving them an out after? And again, I don't know these guys' contracts. I like what the Braves did with Snicker as well. But why do you tie up these players and then give them an out after 2 years or 3 years? And because as soon as their contract's obsolete, what it's going to be, wait till Tatis gets playing and playing healthy, if he ever does, and stops getting hurt and stops cheating. Once Soto signed, well, you've already got Bogarts there. Then once Soto signs, he's going to be the third highest player on the team, and he's going to be all pissed off. And he's going to say, renegotiate my contract or get me out of here, or he'll opt out. These guys can't have it both ways. I talk about it all the time. I'm okay signing guys to these long-term 8, 9, 10-year contracts, but don't give them outs after 3 years. You can have the security of that long-term guaranteed contract, but don't come telling me you're underpaid in 3 years. That's a point that annoys the crap out of me. You can't tell. Beltran was clutch. He was clutch except I tell you what, he was on a tear in the playoffs with the Astros when they got beat by the White Sox in the World Series. But unfortunately, if you're a Mets fan, your lasting impression is Carlos Beltran with his bat on his shoulder for 3 strikes against Adam Wainwright. But I like Carlos Beltran. I think he was a good player. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, though. Which time we got? Again, and we'll get to some other news too here, Joe. I know you got some other stuff coming up. Let me go back and address some Hall of Fame stuff real quick. There's a guy here, Todd Helton, Billy Wagner. I changed my mind on, so he gets in next year. I want Andrew Jones in. None of these other guys, if Kent's out, none of these other guys should get in, except guys who will never get in. A-Rod, who I hate. Manny, not a big fan of. Off the ballot, Bobby Bonds, Roger Clemens. For different reasons, Pete Rose. You cannot have a Hall of Fame without the best players in it. And then start letting the Scott Rolens of the world, the Harold Baines of the world, the Fred McGriffs of the world in when you're going to keep the best players out because they broke rules where we didn't know who was breaking the rules and weren't when it comes to the steroid guys. Put them in and tell the story. Bobby Bonds, one of the best players ever, decided he wanted to be better and use steroids. And put the biggest, I don't know if they got a cast big enough for his head when he was using steroids, but same with Pete Rose. How's there a Hall of Fame without Pete Rose? And Joe Jackson. Put them in. Tell the whole story, warts and all. Bet on baseball. Horrible what he did. I don't dismiss what the steroid guys did, but you already put in Big Papi. You're going to put in Big Papi, but you're not putting in Clemens and Bonds and Manny and A-Rod. I'm not saying this because I'm fans of these guys. I'm a baseball fan, and I know what I watched. Cole Irvin traded Baltimore plus Baltimore. You know what? They do have some good youngsters. I love the catcher. Pitching will be an issue. Getting Irvin's a good move, but we're going to get into more of this. Drew, you and I will have to get together too on a date to do. Drew and I will do our Major League Baseball preview show. Probably mid-March, I would say, maybe late March. We'll do it before the season, but I want things to be kind of settled before we do it. So probably late March, we'll do it one night. And we had great reception to that last year. Tremendous amount of views. Rant time. Oh, there's nothing fires me up more than this topic. Did I say Bobby? I said Barry Bonds, didn't I? By the way, I would say probably the best father-son combination ever in baseball. Ken and Ken Griffey Jr. probably the second. Bob Horner. Bob Horner can't be in. Oh, maybe Kenneth Scott Rolen is. But listen, Bob Horner was only good for a couple of years. Injuries took its toll on him, and I don't think Bob Horner falls into this class. Let me look too. We talked about the guys deserving here. So who's coming in? And the guys who dropped off, I'm not even going to touch on. But I had up here. So next year's ballot we have some. Let's just look ahead real quick at the ballots and who's coming on the ballots. Next year, Adrian Beltre, first ballot Hall of Famer, should be. Bat, glove, the whole package. Joe Mauer, no. Chase Utley, no. David Wright, sorry, Met fans, no. Cologne, no. Holiday, no. Gonzalez, no. Batista and Reyes, no. Adrian Beltre has to be in. In 2025, only one, in my mind, surefire Hall of Famer, and it should be first ballot. Ichiro. You got Sabathia, Pedroia, Kinsler, Troy Tulowitzki, Felix Hernandez. That's it. One. And if Billy Wagner doesn't get in the next 2 years, that'll be his last chance. I think Billy Wagner gets in next year based on what I see. Well, maybe not, because you got Beltre to take away points. So Beltre's in, Helton's in. It might take him another 2 years to get in. And that will be his last shot. And then if you go ahead to 2026, nobody's getting in. Cole Hamels, Ryan Braun, Alex Gordon, Shin-Soo Choo, and Edwin Carcione. I can never say his name. And that'll be Manny's last year in a ballot. And why do we need? We don't have to have guys in every year. You know, the NFL's got rules where they've got to have a minimum of 3 and a maximum of, 112. It's a Hall of Fame. It's okay. I'd be okay if they went 2-3 years and didn't vote anybody in. And these guys that the Veterans Committee are voting in, all nice players. Basically compilers. How often was Fred McGriff the best player on his own team? How often was Harold Baines? Nice players. That's a laugh. All right, good. I'm glad you laughed. Bob Horner was a terrible fielder. Dale Murphy much better. You know what? Dale Murphy's interesting case, back-to-back Hall of Fame years. I wonder, Drew, if there's any other cases of back-to-back Hall of Famers not in the Hall of Fame. Dale Murphy had a very short peak, but he was the best player. He was one of the best players in baseball for that 4 years. Back-to-back back-to-back MVPs. What did I say? Back-to-back Hall of Famers. Back-to-back MVPs. I doubt there's another one. There could be. Bob is the greatest throwback baseball player ever, Bob Horner. Apparently, CA's in love with Bob Horner. The crime dog. Listen, Fred McGriff is a really nice player. Yankees, by the way, traded him, I believe, for Dale Murray and a bag of baseballs. How brilliant did that look for the Yankees? Oh my God, awful. What other news did we miss in Major League Baseball, Drew? I think I missed something. I thought we talked about McNeil signing an extension, big move there. Apparently, Allen didn't have anything to say about the vets, the Rangers signed. It's going to be interesting spring training with a bunch of has-beens and guys are ready to get hurt in Texas. I'm going to have to eat my words if they play well. Talked about Snicker, Fairbanks. I guess we talked about all of that. I talked about this on the MLB update. And I got to find a place to do the MLB update that I do exclusively for. We got to get ready to wrap it up here. What time is it? 26. I do it Friday afternoons right now, but I was doing it recorded, and I want to get audience participation, which we've had some of. But I'm a little backloaded or front-loaded or whatever you want to say on Fridays. I want to look for another day to do it, and I want to make sure we get some audience participation. But I don't want to add another day to my broadcasting schedule, so I'll be working that out. Dana Brown was named the new general manager of the Astros, by the way, as they go for their second World Series in a row. Obviously, he replaces James Click, who was fired after the World Series, shortly after the World Series. And we'll see how that continues. I still say the Astros are the model franchise in baseball. If you want to figure out how to do it right and how to put teams together that can hit home runs, they can hit in situational baseball situations, they can pitch because they got pitching coming out of their butt. This is a really good baseball team, a really good baseball organization, and that's how I think they ought to do it. Good morning. Yeah, we did have a good show this morning. Lots of new participants. I hope you guys make it a regular stop on your Sunday mornings and look at and check out some of the other shows. We love having participation, and you guys have done a great job this morning. I say all the time, you guys are my co-hosts on these shows, and I love the participation. It makes my job easier. If I don't have to sit here and I can go back and forth with you guys. It makes it a lot easier. Scott wants to know who my sleeper team in Major League Baseball that will come out of nowhere and make the playoffs. Do I have time to do this, Scott? Let me look real quick. I got to look quickly at and I got to get ready to wrap it up at the same time. If I was going to give you a team, Drew mentioned the Orioles. Be careful. Watch the Orioles. I think they're still a sleeper team, even though they finished over 500. I'll give you the Twins, who I liked last year. And I'll give you one other. And I'm not going to do it again, Drew. I'm not going to do the. If you want really a reach, Arizona Diamondbacks. Don't know why yet. Got to look deeper into them, but you asked me for Minnesota. There you go. I like them too. So let's get ready to wrap it up, guys. Great show today. Loved it. Going to be a fun day. Go 49ers. Go Bengals. That's where Keith's money is. Not sure about the over-unders yet. We're going to wrap it up. We'll see you next Sunday. We'll have Jim Biringer in for one more. There goes my music. It'll start up again in a second. Jim Biringer in again next week for one last wrap-up before I'm on vacation, which will start. I'll let you know next week what we're going to do. Again, I'll try to do the shows or some version of the shows. It probably won't be at the exact times we do them now, but we will do it and have some fun. So great to have you. Drew, the Tigers and Diamondbacks. They're good. We'll talk about this. The Tigers were picked last year for that. So we got to wrap it up. Keith Engel here for TGI Sports Talks Sunday stream at Caution says, enjoy the football. Let's go, guys.